Hello guys, welcome to C++ Code Solutions. I'm Pekile and today we are working a functions problem in C++. The student that sent me this problem was supposed to do it in Java, so I thought to try it in C++ first. We will be launching our Java playlist soon. So we're working on an online compiler today as well. If you noticed, I use different compiler for the videos these days. This is to allow you to see the different environments and the similarities. I'll clear out this text in here and add using namespace. Remember, you can check out our video on thumbnail to understand more of these functions. Remember, you can use std in code for every cout and cin line if you don't want to have it declared up here. Okay, so this is the problem we're working on today. The string that must be entered in the main method must be the subject code of a student. Example, CMPG 211. Write a method called isValid that will receive the input, starting and test for validity. The code is valid if the first 4 characters are alphabetical characters and the last 3 characters are digits. The first character can only be the letter M, C, or I. The digits can only range from 1 to 3, inclusive, and return a boolean value, true if the input is valid, or false if the input is invalid. Write a method called determineMajor that will receive the first character and determine and return the major of the student. So another function by name determineMajor. Okay, write a method called determineYearLevel that will receive the first digit and return a description of the year level of the student. And this is another function. Okay, the two find methods can only be executed if the code that is entered is valid. Make use of a loop in the main method to ask the user to keep the again and again the loop again and again until the code is valid. What they mean here is that if the user entered an invalid code, we can't call the findMajor and the determineLevel function. If the subject code entered is invalid, the student must be asked to enter the subject code again until they eventually enter the correct results. We have a simple run examples below which we will use to test our code. Okay, the code looks very simple since we're told everything we should do. We should just call our functions in the right order. So let's start our work for the day. First things first, let us start in our main method so that I don't confuse you. The first thing the code must do is to acquire input from the user for the subject's code. And this will allow for the process to go on. The subject code has a data type string, as we see on the first line of the problem question. So we need the header for string. This is just for the data type string. The others need no header. And declare the subject code. Now prompt the user for the input. But remember, we are told to make use of a loop in the main method to ask the user to keep again and again inputting until the code is valid. We will use the while true loop. While true means loop forever, so that our code keeps asking our user over and over again. But we'll add the condition to break the loop at the end. So prompt input getLine. GetLine is an inbuilt function defined in the string header file that allows accepting and reading single and multiple strings or a line from an input string. So we have obtained the grade score now. Now we have to move to the isValid function, which will tell if the subject code entered is valid or it's not. But before doing so, let's remember the conditions for validity is in the valid function. The code is valid if the first 4 characters are alphabetical characters and the last 3 characters are digits. We have functions to check if the variable is an alphabet and if it is a digit. However, these functions check for character variables, whereas we are working with a string, which means we will need to convert our string to an array of characters. each character in our string being an element of an array. So I'll declare the variable to hold this new array to hold the string characters of the subject code. So, because we are told that the subject code, the 4 first characters are car and the last 3 are digits, it tells us that the subject code is 7 character variables. The array size is 7 and our array declaration. So I'll comment here so that we understand what this code below is for. Let me write the code first and I'll explain what happens here. Okay, because we are converting to arrays which holds element through indices, we have our loop run from 0 to 6 for the first 7 elements. If this doesn't make sense, please check out our one-dimensional array video to get an understanding of arrays and their positions. Okay, so we will assign the character variables for our array to the elements in our string with this line. Element at loop index 0 transfers character 1. Element at index 1 transfer character 2. Element at loop index 2 transfers characters 3, and so on. And now we have converted our in-out string to an array of characters, meaning we can move on to the isValid function to check if the user input is valid. So let's go build our isValid function. We will build it up here as that is possible. Alternatively, you can declare it here and build it down at the end of the main function, just as long as it is not in the main function. Function prototype. We observed that because our function returns true or false, given certain conditions, that means it has a data type bool. Bool holds a boolean value, true or false. The parameter holds the value we carry from the main function, if there are any. Or you could say we pass a function values from another in the parameters. And because we need to carry the input values we obtain from the user at the main function, we'll pass it in here. It's a character, so we keep the same data type. Okay, now the function is true if it keeps these conditions. So all these conditions will be kept in the if condition and return true. There are 4 conditions. Condition that the first 4 characters are alphabetical orders. Condition that the last 3 characters are digits. Condition that the first characters can only be the letter M, C, or I. And lastly, the digits can only range from 1 to 3 inclusive. Let's start with the first one. The first 4 characters are alphabetical characters. C++ has a function which checks if the variable is alphabetical letter, and this function is alpha. This function is found in the CC type header. So declare it here. This header declares a set of functions to classify and transform individual characters. So use this isAlpha function to check if the first 4 characters are string. If, let me write the code and I'll explain after. Okay, so yeah, this is it. We have written the code to check if the first character is alphabetic. This line checks the second variable, this one checks the third, and this one checks the fourth. Observe that we have the AND operations in this to ensure that all these conditions are characters and not just one of the characters. If we put OR conditions, if any one of the first four is a number, it will run true, as at least one condition will have been met, but they must all be characters. So we use an AND operation. Now let's move on to the second condition. The last three characters are digits. Likewise, C++ has an inbuilt function which checks if the function is a digit. This function is found in the cc-type header file, which we have declared already. Now we'll check the last three characters. Let's write the code and I'll explain it afterwards. So I've written the code to check if the fifth variable is a number or not. And this line checks if the sixth variable is a variable or not. And this one checks if the seventh variable is a variable or not. Observe also here that we have AND operators, and it is for the same reasons as we had for the above. Now let's move on to the third and the second last of the conditions. The first character can only be the letter M, C, or I. Let me create their brackets here. Okay, let me quickly write the code in here and I'll explain it after also. So because we are only checking the first characters, we see the index 0 here for all these array checks. We check if it is not letter M, then check if it is letter C, and then if it is an I. Observe here that we use the OR operator. Now this is because either one condition has to be true and not all of them. After all, there's only one first letter position in each subject code. If the first position is M, we don't have to see the condition of the first if it's anything else. Also, if the first position is C or I, we don't have to see the condition of first if it's anything else. We've done the third condition check. Now our last condition. The digits can only range from 1 to 3. The digits are on the positions 5, 6, and 7, and we must check each and every position if it is in the range from 1 to 3. Array position 5 must be between 1 to 3, and same for position 6 and 7. So I'll quickly write the code here. Here we've checked if the element 5 is greater than 0 and less than 4. And here we've also checked if element 6. We've also checked element 6, and over here we've checked for element 7. Now we've built our valid condition. If all these conditions are true, then we return a true. So return true. But if not, we return a false. We've built our isValid function. Now let's build our two other functions. Since we're building functions, we'll get back to the main function once we're done. Let's determine the major firstly. We are told that the determineMajor function will receive the first character and determine and return the major of the student. What this simply means is the function is passed the first character of the subject code. Then it will use it to determine the major of the student. It returns a string which is the results, whether computer science, maths, or IS. So it's a string data type. And looking at our valid sample runs, we see here that a C is for computer science, M is for mathematics, and I is for information systems. So we'll return the respective subjects for each first character of the array. I'll declare a variable that will hold the subject results, which is a string. So we'll create a condition for when first character is M, which is mathematics. Then we'll create a condition for when the first character is C, which is computer science. And we'll create a condition for when the first character is I, which is information systems. And then the function returns subjects, which will be formed by the first letter. This return line ensures that we are able to get this value when we call the function in the main function. Okay, now we are able to determine the student's major. Lastly, we need to determine the year level, and we are told that the determineYearLevel function will receive the first digit and then it will return a description of the year level of the student. Meaning that if the first number is a 1, the student is in their first year level. If the first number is a 2, the student is in their second level. And if the first number is a 3, the student is in their third year level. That we can also see on our sample runs for the code that ran true. So our function is a string type, returning the year level. It is passed the subject code to check the digits. We are returning the year level, so declare it. Remember that we are checking only the 5th position on the array. So check if it is a 1, return the year. So check if it is a 2, return the year. And so check if it is a 3, return the year. And the function returns the respective year. And that's it. That's simple. We have completed and built our functions. Now back to the main function to call all these functions. Let's create the variables that will help us call out functions instead of calling them directly. That is what good coding is. For determineMajor function, we will create a string variable since the function is also a string. Call it major. And for determineMajorLevel, we will create a string variable as well since the function is a string. Call it year. And we will assign them their respective functions here. Major is equal to the determineMajor function. Here is equal to determineYearLevel function. According to a sample run, when user entered an invalid subject code, they must be informed that it is invalid. So we will do so now. And that is when the isValid function returns false. Cout an invalid message. So if it's false, this line invalid will run, then the loop will come back up to ask for input since we are in the run forever loop, while true. To come out of the loop, let's break out. We are almost done. We just need to write lines for when the subject code is true. Let's come out of this loop. Okay, if its valid function is true, according to what is here on the valid line, we must output that the code is valid. And we must output the student's major, which we gave variable major. And we must also output the year level of the student, which we gave the variable year. And there, we have completed our code. We wrote all the lines to answer to the problem. Now let us run our code with the 5 sample runs. Sample run 1. Great, we have the same results. Sample run 2. Please try again. Another try. There, mathematics year in the first year level. Try the third run sample. Try again. They are an information system student in their first year. You keep surprising yourself, right? You did it again. Solved another C++ problem. You deserve a standing ovation. Well, while you enjoy it, study the code and make sure that you understand it. And we'll meet again in the next video. Be sure to contact me if you need further assistance with this code. Thank you.